So the closer you are, the faster this charge gauge will fill up. Therefore, you can do your attacks sooner. Now, moving and targeting uses up an action. So there's a lot to unpack from the Resonance of Fate combat system. And seriously, it's not for casuals. It feels needlessly complex, but it's also very cool. So, to describe it, it's just a little too clever for its own good, I think. You start off with 3 characters, and they are all equipped with guns. You can dual wield and also throw certain explosives, but we will refrain from that and try to do just the basics of combat. There are 2 types of damage. There is direct, real damage, and then there is scratch damage, which is accumulated theoretical damage. You can think of it as like a damage modifier. So, direct damage is in orange, and it tends to be weaker, but affects the enemy HP bar immediately. While scratch damage is blue, it's typically a modifier that can apply when direct damage is inflicted after the scratch damage. And scratch damage scales a lot better than direct damage, but it is not in effect until direct damage is applied. So when you start a battle, you can choose to move or target an enemy. To fire, your character has to aim and charge the targeting reticle, and then press the button to fire. Now, the speed at which this reticle fills up is dependent upon how far you are from the enemy. So the closer you are, the faster this charge gauge will fill up. Therefore, you can do your attacks sooner. Now, moving and targeting uses up an action gauge that depletes. Enemies will get to attack and move as you attack and move as well. However, there is a way around that because, tactically that's not that great. This is where a majority of Resonance of Fate's combat is the linchpin of its combat, basically, where everything takes place, and that's the hero action gauge. So you have a hero action gauge. It starts with 3 so far in the early game. It looks like you can increase it to a higher amount. It was certainly a lot more when using the tutorial. The hero action lets you basically plot a linear path in which you run to the end of the line, firing consecutively at an enemy target without any interference. So that's quite strong. There is also a resonance gauge that goes up every time your character crosses in between the other 2 members relative to where they are. And you will usually do this with the hero action gauge. You want to plot it so that you're crossing in between the other 2. You do not gain this resonance until your character has crossed the other 2. So if there's anything that stops you from crossing the other 2 characters, like obstacles or running into an enemy, then you don't get that resonance point. Building this up allows your characters to do a resonance attack. It's important to know that you can do this with even just 1 resonance point. It's not necessary to gain 3 resonance points, and it's actually quite difficult to do so. And the more resonance points you have, the stronger your attacks are. So essentially, you have to make sure that your hero gauge has some actions left. You can do this by killing an enemy, and sometimes by guard breaking them, which replenishes the hero gauge. You mostly need to do hero actions to kill or guard break. It is incredibly hard to do this without using a hero action. You expend all your hero actions, you enter a critical mode, which is very, very bad. When you have hero gauge damage on your characters, it is considered scratch damage and is theoretical. That means that while you have hero gauge, the damage you accumulate is still theoretical scratch damage. It's like a modifier. It won't actually be true damage until you run out of the hero gauge. And once they start attacking you when you're out of hero gauge, that damage will apply and you will be very dead. So no hero gauge means you start getting direct true damage. Enemies will constantly move and attack and heal as well. And because you're going on the same action sequences as they are, and there's more of them, it's just a really bad situation. So you always want to take out as many enemies as possible with the hero gauge. And if you are forced to do regular targeting and moving without the hero gauge, this is under critical condition, it's basically over. It's really hard to fight even regular enemies in this mode, as charging your targeting reticle and doing actions that damage them is dependent upon how close they are, and sometimes they're just far away and they're moving and they're attacking and they're healing. It's no good. So that's basically the gist of Resonance of Fate's combat. If you are not utilizing a majority of your actions through the hero gauge and killing things and gaining back hero actions, it's gonna be very one-sided, I feel. And so you have to manage that properly. And it's not easy, but it is fun and it can look very stylish.